Good afternoon, Heather.
Hey Bruce, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm loving this time together, and it's
Mhm.
just the opportunity to get together, talk about some words. Can I have a word with you, and share that out? So, for those who you may be new, this is Bruce Pulver, author of Above the Chatter: Our Words Matter, and TEDx speaker, and all around hopefully encourager. And my co-host Heather Carter.
Yep, and I am the author of Soul Selfie and Soul Selfie #No Filter, and we're just here to unpack one word for a few minutes. Actually, we're going to unpack one word from a few different angles over the next few weeks. So Bruce, I'll tell you my story now.
Yeah.
So here's the word that we're going to unpack for about 4 episodes is expectations. I'm sure that Bruce and I are the only ones who have any of those out of whack. So just listen in and glean from our the ways we struggle in that area. But yeah, so a few weeks ago, I guess I texted you my idea about doing this particular word from these different angles, and we added a new angle this morning that you brought up. But yesterday, I sat down and I have a couple books and a bunch of blogs, and so I went through everything I've ever written about expectations from every angle I could think of, and just kind of refresh my memory about things I know to be true about it and things I've struggled with. And so I spent considerable time, several hours, reading all these blogs yesterday. So at the end of my time, I thought, you know what? I should really look in some of these recovery books that I read because there's a lot of information there about expectations. But I didn't have time to do it because I had to go to this meeting that I go to. So I get to the meeting and it's a topic meeting. So it means that the leader gets to pick any topic of hundreds of topics that they want to talk about. And she picked expectations. I just about like ran out of the room. I was like, had goosebumps. Could not believe it. So I do know that this was not my idea and that God has some things that he needs to refresh my memory on. And so it was at least affirmed that we're on the right track, I guess.
Wow. There are no coincidences, right? When we step in and you didn't know that was going to be the topic, but he prepared you to kind of put some thoughts together,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it was a great meeting.
Yeah. And then I got to listen to 18 people pontificate and share their struggles with or their challenges with, or even just ways that they've gotten a handle on some of their expectations. So it was
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
words are so we're fascinated by words, right? The
Mm-hmm.
power of the word, and you know they can have so many different meanings and so many different angles and so many different perspectives, and that's what's so beautiful about talking about what we interpret and how a certain word impacts us. And the one thing that I did I looked at um, words, WRORDS, and been thinking a lot about how powerful they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just took the S and I moved it to the beginning, and it becomes the word sword. And if you think about it, I really believe that words are a sword. They can protect us, they can serve us, they can help us, or they can be deadly. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the things that we like to talk about in Can I Have a Word with You is paying attention to our words and breaking them down and what do they mean and how can we use them to impact everyone, ourselves and others around us in a positive way. So let's
Yeah.
talk about expectations. And I think the first slant we want to take on this is expectations of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because don't you think that, actually, what do you think about expectations of ourselves and how maybe you have dealt with those in the past and how you kind of think through that?
Well, it's maybe this is why this topic was on my mind because I wrote a post a few weeks ago called "This Is Me Better," and it was about the fact that probably a few years ago I was sort of freaking out about some real estate transaction, and my managing broker was in the car with me, and he's like, I thought you went to some sort of group that's supposed to help you deal with situations like this. And I said, I do. He's like, it's not working. And I was like, I go, oh, actually, it is working. This is me better. Like maybe a year ago, I would have been like physically hurting people, but today I'm just kind of sort of freaking out in front of you. And I just had that thought of myself a few weeks ago when I went to the beach. And of course, you know, when you're going on a beach vacation, your tendency is to want to like, okay, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to get tan and all those things because you're going to be half naked on a beach in public. So I was there and I walked past a window, caught a glimpse of myself. And my first thought was like, ugh. And then my second thought, which again, this is me better, was, well, it's not as bad as it was. At least it's not as bad as it was because I had done some of those things. And then I just moved along and I was surprised at myself because I usually would stand there or go back to my room and put on a snowsuit or something. And instead I was like, well, you know what? At least it's not as bad as it was. Let's keep going. And I think that gave me some insight to my expectations that I put on myself. You know, I'm just we all are, I think, so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
We expect perfection and we forget to celebrate the progress of, yes, you might be freaking out, but you know what? It only took you 10 minutes to figure out what to do about it instead of 2 days worth of stewing and all that.
Yeah.
So that's a long answer for your little question.
We can be the hardest on ourselves. We can. Mm-hmm. But I also think, you know, there's the other side of that too. There's the I guess I call it the care factor. And I think expectations on ourselves, it's really important to try to find a balance, right? There's times when we really, you know, want to push and we push and we're good about that or grateful for that. You know, there's times when we think we need to push and we don't. What does that make us feel like? You know, and are we pushing ourselves enough is another aspect of that. And I believe a lot of that is in our head. A lot of it really is in our head for a lot of different reasons and expectations on ourselves. So a lot of you guys know, or I know Heather, you know, I recently started a new corporate position. And one of the things that I loved about the onboarding week was really one phrase that they encouraged us for. And I've tried to put that as an expectation on myself as I get into something brand new. Well, yeah, it's using talents that I've had, and it's using my background. It is a totally new environment. And the phrase that they use, which was so impactful to me, is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And what they meant by that is take the time to slowly work on what you need to and have those expectations of yourself that by moving slowly through things and thoroughly, it becomes smooth. It's sort of like a musician learning a new song on a saxophone or a new piece of music. I was a drummer, I was drumming. We had to really break things down slowly and integrate them into our life. And then when we did that, we were able to play much more smoothly, which then enabled us, when we did master something to the level that we were able to perform it, never perfection, but as best we could, then we were able to play at tempo, or we were able to make quicker decisions because we had a thorough understanding. And I loved the fact that they set the expectation. There were 35 of us in this new onboarding week that said, take it slowly and try and make it smooth. And then you'll be able to. So that was just one way of an expectation that was, that was external, but I'm trying to take that and put that on myself for this, for 90 days or so in this new job.
Right. And when you start anything new or what we expect from ourselves, they gave you permission to do it slowly and to do it right, as opposed to sometimes we think we need to be the best tomorrow, or by, you write a book, by the end of the week, it should be on the bestseller list and you should be speaking and all that stuff that, just life does not work at the pace we always want. And so our expectations are really, managing those expectations for ourselves is really important, because I tend to also think, I'm kind of a perfectionist. So I think I need to do everything perfectly. And when I don't, or I make mistakes, which is definitely going to happen, sometimes that's really hard for me to accept. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so mad at myself, or I know I could have or should have done it better. We talked about in another episode about shoulding on ourselves.
Yes.
And that's really what expectations are, is that we are of ourselves. We should on ourselves. And we say, I should have done this or I should have done that. And one of the quotes I read yesterday when I was reading through some things said, I am right where I need to be to get today to get where I'm going tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh,
You
so
just
true. So true.
who you are, and we another one of our podcasts that we did, I think we did it on worthy, and that would be a good one for people to revisit, because that's the same thing, is that we're worthy now, not
Yes.
worthy when, not worthy if, we're worthy now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we need to just kind of give ourselves a break from that
Yeah.
pressure sometimes.
Yeah. So a little letter trigger for that for me is being, worthy, or do we have capacity? Do we have what we need? Is just writing letters URE
Mm-hmm.
and UF. You
Mm-hmm.
are enough, and we think we've talked about that, but it's difficult because we do have those expectations. And a friend shared with me in a conversation one day. He said, Bruce, because I was trying to get ahead of myself. He's pulling me back. He goes, man, we always overestimate what we can get done in a day. We
Mm-hmm.
underestimate what we could get done in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So he was very encouraging to say, take it one day at a time. You are where you need to be. You are prepared for what's in front of you. Just, and you are enough. So I really do believe that expectations of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
is a, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's sometimes it's a meter, it's a gauge, because and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. I think it's something we need to monitor. Are they high enough, right?
Yeah.
Are they too high? Are they where they need to be? And that's okay. But I do think there may be a compass along expectations and setting them for ourselves that can help us situationally. I mean, if you know something cold, maybe you have a higher expectation of yourself. If you're learning something new, have a high expectation that you will be patient. Have a high
Mm-hmm.
expectation that it will take time.
Right.
Have a high expectation that it will work out where you'll learn that, versus the expectation being high that you should already know how, or you should already
Right.
be an expert at it. So I think it's important to have high expectations, but maybe we need to put them in the context of for what.
Right. I know expectations is a pretty big word to try to define, because there are nuances to it. It's at work, there are expectations that we have of employees, and expectations that are put on us because there's certain things that need to happen at work or in our home and that kind of thing. But um, usually our struggles are that our expectations get out of whack. Those are kind of one animal, and then we're talking more about the expectations we have of ourselves
Yeah.
and keeping them realistic. Um, One of the things that I think, I don't know if you're familiar with, I think it's Stephen Furtick who said it, and he was saying that we compare our behind the scenes with other people's highlight reels. We're that comparison comes into what we expect from ourselves, because we see so and so, well, Bruce did this, so I should be doing this, and we compare, she did that, so I should be. And all we see is the outside picture of somebody else's life, and then we're basing what we expect from ourselves on this result of somebody else's success.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's
'Cause we are
hard.
always with ourselves. We
Yes.
we see every aspect of it, the good, the bad, the dirty, the ugly,
Mhm.
all of that. But you're right, we don't, and therefore, and that's, I know, for another program, expectations of others and from others, we'll explore a little bit
Mhm.
more, but because they have that external impact. But so why don't we take ourselves, expectations of ourselves, and I'll break down what I wrote for that. I did some prep and
Yeah.
hadn't written this word before, and I tried to focus ourselves based on the word expectations. So as you guys know, we kind of break a word down, we write it vertically, and we use the letters to to kind of define what that means, or maybe how it can help us improve or get better or get stronger in certain things. So expectations of ourselves. I think the O for me was, is it outside in or is it inside out? So
Mhm.
let's pay attention to that. The expectations of ourselves, are they coming from external or are they coming from the inside? And I would argue, pay more attention to the inside out on expectations. Nobody
Mhm.
knows you better than you. The
Right.
O is, are we using our gifts? And Heather, you have different ones than I do, and I have different ones than you do, and everyone else out there. So are we setting expectations of gifts of ours, or are we saying I don't have something and then still trying to have that expectation in a certain way, right? So be
Mm.
careful with that. Let's make sure our expectations are based on the gifts that we have or the gifts that we're
Right.
developing to use. The R is reflect with respect. What I mean by that is, look how far you've come, right? Everything that you have gone through, you have survived, right?
Mhm.
You're here. We're having this conversation. So reflect on those achievements and do that with respect. Even if it was a messy time you had to come through, right? That would be the R on that expectation of ourselves. The S is always seeking our best. So seeking our best, not perfect, not
Mhm.
perfection. Yes, we'd like that, but that expectation of ourselves of being perfect is a real slippery slope, I believe.
Mhm.
So that's the S. The E is embracing our uniqueness, which kind of gets back to using our gifts. If we can, if we can understand that no one is like us, which means, the options that were installed by God in us is
Mhm.
what makes us amazing, then our expectations are going to climb to those as opposed to the things that we don't have, right? That others do. The L is let go of comparisons to others. You talked about that early on, the
Mhm.
highlight reel versus the behind the scenes and the edit room cutting floor, right? So letting go of comparisons to others. The V is vigorously working to grow. I think if we're in motion and if we are working on improving ourselves, even if that might be a setback for a day, or two steps forward, one step back, or one step forward, two steps back, that's okay. But if we're vigorously working to grow, I think that helps also us set expectations for ourselves. Then the E is expect a test. It's not going to be easy, but that shouldn't impact our expectations and make us feel like we're falling short of them. If we expect a test,
Mhm.
then we're kind of on guard for something that's going to challenge us, right? And then the S of ourselves is saying yes to yourself. I think that's really important, as opposed to
Mhm.
saying no to yourself. Not no in things or acquisitions, but saying yes. Like, yeah, my expectations might be high, and I'm going to say yes to myself. I'm going to step in and lean in. So a lot of letters in expectations for ourselves, but that's just one way that I kind of looked at it. And hopefully there's some letters in there that may help some folks think about setting expectations of themselves.
Absolutely. So yeah, well, I hope you guys will come back next week. We're going to talk about expectations of others, right?
Yes.
We're going to break that down into a couple different things. So I think this topic could probably be a month long, because just based on what I heard last night from people who struggle with expectations, and so yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a necessary one for anybody at any age or any stage of their life. We all have those expectations. How do we manage them?
Yeah, part of life, and they're good. It's good to have them.
Yeah.
I think it's like a tool, like any tool in the toolbox. It's kind of how we use it, and how we make the most use efficiently for ourselves. So,
Yeah.
Heather, as always, great to unpack another word with you. This time, expectations on ourselves. And
Hmm.
drop a comment in, share this out, share it with your friends. You can find me at Above the Chatter, Bruce Pulver on Instagram, where I post this link, and I also post a word every day. And Heather at heathercarterwrites.com. Check out her
Yep.
stuff. It's great.
All right. Thanks, Bruce.
See you next week.